Hello guys, it's Teenage Marvel Fan back in another video, and in this video I will be doing another episode review for Marvel's Spider-Man. And this episode was Goblin War Part 2. So we are halfway through the Goblin War, and a lot has happened. We found out the identity of the Goblin King. We find out where their base is and a whole bunch of stuff. So without further ado, let's jump right into the episode and find out what happened in this episode of Marvel's Spider-Man. So, as Peter Parker and Harry Osborn hope to discover the Goblin King's identity, Harry realizes that they find a secret tunnel and secret laboratory underneath the family tomb. So underneath the Osborn family tomb. So of course that's already suspicious. And of course they're suited up as Spider-Man and Hobgoblin because this is a kids show, and most of the time if they're not dressed up as superheroes, then kids don't care about watching it because they don't look as cool. So they start exploring this cave, or this laboratory. And then that is when Harry and Peter start talking. And then we find out that Harry never left New York. Because remember, we thought he went to Europe or something like that after Norman died. But no, it turns out he never left. He was in New York the whole time. Because after his father died, he got this final message from his father about this mech that his father designed that could save the world. So Harry, of course, he decided to build it. So he built this giant mech robot thing, and he's been working on it this whole time. And of course, it's really dangerous. So that's not good. But yeah, so he's been here in New York the whole time. We never knew that. And then Peter starts to question what else Harry was lying about. Like, is he leading him into a trap? But then once they actually get into the laboratory, they see all of the goblin suits and stuff like that, and they can see it as being mass-produced, and it's like a factory thing. But then the Goblin King, along with all of the other goblin soldiers, show up. And this is where the trouble starts. So they get in this big fight. And during the fight, based on how the goblin soldiers are talking and what they sound like and how they act, Peter Parker discovers, oh, these are the Wake Riders. So if you don't remember who the Wake Riders are, they're from last season, I believe. They were Vulture's henchmen. And I think you know where I'm going with this. Because then the Goblin King is revealed to be Adrian Toomes, aka the Vulture. And this is so obvious. I don't like this at all. Because first of all, it should be Norman Osborn. It shouldn't be Adrian Toomes. Adrian Toomes has nothing to do with the Green Goblin. This should have been the big Green Goblin story on this show. But no, they changed it into the Vulture. And plus, it was super easy to figure it out. I mean, all the Goblin soldiers, they have Vulture's wings, and they talk and dress just like the Wake Riders did, except with goblin masks. Literally the same suits. Plus, on top of that, you could tell that whenever the Goblin King was talking, he had the same exact voice as Adrian Toomes. Like, they should have at least had somebody else voice the Goblin King, like, when he had his mask on, because then it wouldn't be so obvious, but it was obvious. So, yeah, Adrian Toomes is the Green Goblin. Well, no, not the Green Goblin, just the Goblin King. And he wants everybody to know the true power and intelligence of Adrian Toomes. Which doesn't make sense, because if he wants to be famous, then why is he wearing a mask? I mean, he wants everyone to know the name Adrian Toomes, but he's wearing a mask so nobody knows that the Goblin King is Adrian Toomes. So, kind of stupid, but whatever. So then, after that, the Goblin King and Goblin soldiers escape. And then they end up blowing up the lab while Peter and Harry are in there. But then they end up escaping, and then that's what leads into the other storyline of the episode. Because meanwhile, Ghost Spider and Spider-Girl have a run-in with Dr. Octopus. So he's using his spider bots, and he's looking for Peter Parker because he doesn't know where he is. So he finds Spider-Girl and Ghost Spider, and then he tries to talk to them, but because Peter Parker, Spider-Man, won't tell Ghost Spider and Spider-Girl that he's Spider-Man, which is the stupidest thing on this show ever, they still think that Dr. Octopus is a villain, and they don't know that the whole body switch thing happened, and they think he's still supposed to be in a coma, and they think he's like a super bad villain. So then, when he starts trying to explain things about how he's working with Spider-Man and stuff, they just start laughing, because they think it's stupid, and they think he's just lying and trying to trick them. So then they destroy the Spider-Bots, and then they leave. And then that leads to their doom, because they are tracking some spider soldiers, some goblins, and then they get led into this subway. And in this subway, they find some goblins, but they look different than the other goblins, because all the other goblins, like, their suits are grayish silver with green and purple highlights. These ones, they were like a bluish green turquoise color. And then you see that they start shooting electricity at them. So these are known as the Electro Goblins, apparently. And then this is where it ties into the other storyline, because when Harry and Peter escape the laboratory, Otto shows up in one of his spider bots and informs them about what happened with Anya and Gwen, and that he can't get a signal, so he doesn't know what happened to them, and because it happened before, so he thinks they're dead, but of course they're not. And apparently Electro is there, so Electro is leading them. So they're doing this interesting thing and making it like goblin gangs now, which I'm actually kind of liking this whole idea, because it like incorporates other villains and gives them each different versions of the goblins. So I'm looking at a synopsis of the next episode, Goblin War Part 3, and it says that there's multiple goblin gangs, including the Electro Goblins, War Goblins, and Cyber Goblins. So, of course, we know the Electro Goblins would be led by Electro, and then the other ones would be led by other Spider-Man villains. Now, the thing is, I don't know who. Because War Goblins and Cyber Goblins, I don't know how those would fit into, like, a theme of any other Spider-Man villains. I mean, like, Electro Goblins, the name Electro is literally right there in the name of the gang. So I don't know about the War Goblins or the Cyber Goblins. So post your thoughts down in the comments below. Who do you think will be the leaders of the War Goblins and the Cyber Goblins? But pretty much that was what happened in this episode, and I'm excited to see what's happening in the next episode, though, because the Goblin gangs and the Goblin King are going to attack New York, and then the Spider team must assemble, which includes Miles Morales, Ghost Spider, Hobgoblin, Spider-Girl, and Dr. Octopus. So I look forward to seeing that happening. But